Welcome to Savvy Business, Life Unscripted with your host, Christina Rivera, where our guests share their wisdom and valuable business tips, empowering our audience to expand their personal potential.
Hi, Eddie Cisneros. Welcome to Savvy Broadcasting, Life Unscripted. We're so grateful to have you here today. How are you?
Pretty good. Holding up, barring what's going on right now across the world.
I know people are going to be getting into the groove, getting back to things, getting back to normal. We have Queens and Brooklyn down the house today. You're in Queens. I'm in Brooklyn, New York. So grateful to have you here. You have an interesting story. You work as a doorman still. You've been doing it for 26 years, but you're also an author. You've written a number of books, and we're grateful to have you share how you were able to bring your dream to reality, even though you have a job. A lot of people think you have to have one or the other. It's either I have a job or I give that up and then I start my dream. Why not do both?
Exactly.
Yeah. So how did that happen for you? How did you enter into the world of working as a doorman and then decide that, hey, I have this passion of writing and I want to do that? How did that happen?
Well, I think the writing has always been something with me, and that's, an extreme passion of mine. As far as being a doorman, I was approached by a friend back in the days. We used to do music together. And he approached me asking me if I was interested in a part-time job, which at that point, I said, yeah. I took on the job working weekends. And I specifically remember telling my old super back then that it's for a limited time, only because at that point I was actually trying to get into the police academy. And I actually scored pretty well. I was in what was called Band 1 at that time. So I was pretty much close to being called. And it was for housing, actually. So the scary part with that was you start hearing all these stories about these projects and wherever. And it was just like, I kind of got, cold feet. And I kind of just, said, forget about the police academy. And then I ended up staying at the job. And like I said, years go by. I went from part-time working days to nights. I got the full-time. And come June, I'm there 26 years. So it's been pretty eventful, pretty good.
That's awesome. And what is your biggest lesson? Because I'm thinking it's kind of like being in the hotel industry. It's really customer service oriented. What is your biggest lesson you've learned in the job?
Yes, it is. I guess you have to be very patient. I mean, believe me, I love the job. I love my building. But you do get into situations where you hear certain things. And it's funny because several years back, this is going back, I actually wrote a memoir. And it was called Opening Doors, the New York City Doorman's Secrets and Stories.
I love that.
I never pushed it, but I also did it under a pseudonym, I guess, and it was called Open the Door Man. And because of that, I was actually able to write for a real estate website, which is called brickunderground.com. And I wrote bi-weekly posts that were titled A Doorman Speaks. So I guess those are still available in the archives if anyone wants to look them up. And it was just basically just giving people an inside, view of what goes on in a building, but coming from the perspective of the person that actually works the door, which is the doorman.
Yeah. Yeah, I've never worked or lived in a building that had a doorman, but I've certainly gone to hotels where we've had wonderful people serve you at the front desk and take up your luggage and help you out there. And I'm thinking it's not too different than what they do there, correct? Or
it's pretty much the same thing. I mean, I meet and greet people, but you get to know them on a personal level. I'm handling all packages and dry cleaning, and especially now with what's going on. I mean, granted, I give a lot of respect to the essential workers as far as medical team, but at the end of the day, my job is deemed through our contract, and our union is deemed as an essential worker. And I'm also on the front lines. I'm right there at the door. I'm opening the door for people in and out. I'm still receiving boxes and dry cleaning deliveries. So it gets a little overwhelming sometimes, especially with this whole virus that's going on. It gets a little scary sometimes.
Yeah. How have you kept your state of mind and your mental health, at this time when there's a lot of fear going on? That's what I'm feeling in the street. I'm feeling this kind of tension and fear. Has it caused people to be a little bit short sometimes?
You know what? You do see a difference in some people. I mean, but to me, honestly, personally, I'm a type person, listen, no matter what goes on, you'll always see me cracking a smile. I mean, you just have to. And if you don't, I mean, you lose focus as to your own self, I guess, like you said, your own sanity. And again, I'm trying to take it as calmly as possible. But But you do see some people, they're a little jumpy. I mean, I try to hand them a package and they're like jumping away from me. Exactly. No, put it on the ledge. And I respect that. I get it, you know?
Yeah, I know. I completely get you. So let's shift to your writing. Now you have this passion. How did you begin to explore it? And then you've written the book and it's published. How did that come about for you? Because a lot of people have this passion. Oh, I always wanted to write a book, but they just sit on it. They don't move forward. How did you move forward?
You know, to me, I say I'm a doorman second, author first and foremost, or a writer first and foremost. Just do it. I mean, basically, if you have anything in life that you have a passion for, do it. My whole thing I've always said is that I would regret in life having like knowing that I didn't take a chance in doing something. And that to me is the biggest, you know, regret that you would have, because if you don't try, you don't know what you're actually capable of doing. Yeah. So I would say for anyone that's a writer, anyone that wants to be whatever, go for it. I mean, the worst that can happen is that it doesn't happen, but you know, you tried at least, you know?
Yeah, it's true. It's so true. Because do you want to be on your last day on this planet going, man, I didn't get to do this or that, and feel regretful when, you know, you tried it, didn't work out. Hey, maybe you didn't even like it. There are some people I hear, oh, I decided I want to be a photographer. I got all the equipment. You went on, did, and you're like, not feeling it. But it's funny how sometimes you move forward doing something you think you might like, that other opportunities open up and you were like, well, I don't like this, but I do like video editing or something like that.
Exactly. And like I said, I mean, it's just a matter of just going for it, trying at least, you know, and you never know. You got people that they're in one industry and they find out that, listen, I'm better suited at baking, and they've made actually a big business out of it. So, you know, that's, you go for it.
Yeah, life is odd that way. You never know.
Pretty much is, yes.
It's funny. I started out as a kid. I was taking voice training, and my mom had me doing violin. And you think, now I look back and my mom said, well, that was all for naught, because you're not a violinist, you're not a singer. But I use a lot of the talents or the things I gained, the skills I gained from maybe focus and discipline from those. Sure. Yeah, from those lessons, putting them into my now life. So, you know, sometimes you might learn something and think, well, this doesn't serve me. It can in different capacity. You can correlate things that you learned in one thing and use it in some fashion in another industry or another service.
I agree. Yes.
Yeah. So how did it work when you had your book and you've written it? Now, how did you start to get it published? How did that look for you? How was that trip?
Listen, again, it's one of those where, you know, you have a passion for something and you keep on doing it. I've always said, listen, where one door closes on you, there has to be another one where it's open. You have to just basically turn the doorknob and keep
I love that.
I mean, I went through countless queries and rejections, and I do admit that at times it gets it's a little depressing, you know, when you hear the pretty much the same old standard rejection, whereas your material is not for us, but we urge you to continue writing, where our opinions are one thing, another publisher might, and you go on and on. But again, it just, to me, it made me, I guess, it made me want it more. Yeah. It made me continue to edit my work, and made me to expand on certain ideas I was getting from some people as far as what was working, what was not, and you continue to expand on that and make it better. And I was actually fortunate enough to with the same story that I have now, was actually published 2 different times. One back in 2014, and then now my recent publisher, it's the same story. They just had changed the name on the book series. But again, it's just a matter of just keep on going and never stop. Never stop believing.
Yeah, I love that. You know what I also liked of what you did is that you got constructive criticism sometimes, because sometimes you'll just focus on the rejection. Oh, I got rejected again. But okay, what's in that rejection that maybe I can use to make me even better? And
exactly.
then, you know, because the thing is, I find I just recently wrote a book myself, and it's funny, you're looking at your work and you see it over and over again, and you're like, you don't see anything that might need fixing or that doesn't clarify to the audience, because it's you and you know the story. But then you give it to someone else and you're like, well, this doesn't make sense to me. And you're like, you see an outside perspective that helps you clear up and see, okay, I can firm this up. I can make this better.
Sure. And it's funny because I'm a type of person, you write, and there are times where I love my material and I'm thinking, oh yeah, this is the best thing in the world. And then you go back to the same page a day later and I'm like, what was I even thinking? Like, this is horrible. So you go through that as a writer, you go through that confliction. It's like, I got to walk away from this. But again, you do need that outside perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Someone to tell me, you know what, listen, I like this works, this kind of doesn't work. So you are seeing a different set of eyes that are actually reading what you're writing, and it helps to fine tune those weak points that you need in order to get to tighten up your script or your book or whatever it is, to get it out there and continue pushing it.
Yeah, absolutely. And what works for you as far as the writing process? I mean, I've heard some people say, hey, listen, just get out there and write it. It doesn't matter. Just throw it out there on paper and then go back. What's your process?
I have so many ideas in my head. I mean, I used to jot them down.
Mm-hmm.
Thankfully, I'm able to retain that. So I do know, like, when I need some kind of certain dialogue, just like I said, writing it down, sometimes it used to help me jotting it down here and there. But basically just whatever you have, I always say it's just write it out first. I guess you draw out some kind of an outline or format. And then from there, if you have a particular story in mind already, it'll evolve. And with this series that I have out, that's exactly what happened. I mean, it's a pretty straightforward story, but as I continued writing, it ventures out into certain different subplots, and you build a whole world of just 1,000 different characters, and they all come to life as a writer, because it's just open land, open territory, and go wild with it.
Yeah, absolutely. And what's interesting for me, I'm an auditory learner and I get things better. I express myself in that fashion. So when I was getting the idea that I want to write something, what I started to do is just record it for me, because people say, oh, you said that perfectly when I say it. When I put it on paper, it's like, bleh.
It's a different, it comes out totally different.
But then I just say, I was like, okay, I'm going to say it on a tape recorder, then I'm going to write it, then let's fix it, grammatically. So that's just what works for me, but everyone's different. Now, where can people find out more about your books and get some copies and start reading them today? How can they do that?
Well, the book series, it's on Amazon, I guess, Books A Million online, Flipmart or Walmart online. The title of the book is called Hispanicus. It's a series. The first one came out, it's called The Apostate Life of Antonio Pintero. When the second book came out, it's called Abandoned Road. Mm-hmm. And it's a fictional story about a Bronx-born drug dealer who begins to retell his life story, but at the same time, he embarks on this journey of penance, if you will, wanting to right his wrongs before he feels that something bad is about to happen to him.
Well, yeah, you're so right about that. Hispanicus, where did you come up with the title for that? It's your interesting title.
It's, my publisher, my latest publisher actually helped retitle it. The original title on it was called His-Panic, and I thought it was just a fun play on words.
Yeah.
But because it was already published under that name, they figured they wanted to give it a new look as far as the title-wise. So we rolled with a Hispanicus, and it actually has stuck. A lot of people told me that they like that better.
Yeah. And that's one thing I didn't think about until years later when I was thinking about the idea of writing, is that when I go and look at a book, I go to a bookstore, I'm looking at the cover, I'm looking at the, the what do you call it, the side thing.
Oh, the binding, yeah.
The binding. You're like, all of that kind of attracts you initially to the book and go, oh, this sounds interesting. You pick it up, you start reading the back of it. So, a lot of times I guess you would say that's not that important, but really it's probably just as important as the content inside. It's the initial boom attracting the client or the people to your book. Exactly.
And I think to me that, the title Hispanicus sounds kind of like epic. Because it really is a lengthy series. You basically have one character who's retelling his pretty much entire life story, starting when he was like 5 years old. And it spans through the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, the 90s. And so, yeah, it's pretty well thought out, and it's like I said, a very lengthy series.
Does it have a lot of the New York history in it as well?
It does, actually, and I did a lot of research, Googling stuff, but also some stuff that I actually grew up. I mean, I'm a 70s baby. I grew up in 72. I was born in 72. So I always say that at my age, I like to think that I've seen a lot. I mean, I've seen, 8-track and cassettes and CDs and records. I've seen a lot, and I continue to feel that I'm young enough that I'm going to continue to see a lot more. So, but it does has a lot of history, New York stuff, going back to the Bronx, a lot of stuff that was going on back in those days, the garbage strike, so it does. Like I said, a lot of research came into this.
Did you grow up in the Bronx?
No, actually, it's funny because the center story basically takes place in the Bronx, but I've been a Queens boy pretty much all my life. I was born in Brooklyn, and then moved to Queens. I've been here ever since.
Oh, Brooklyn. So where in Brooklyn?
Yes. You know what? I'm not really sure. I don't know if it was Brooklyn Hospital I was born, but we were there for maybe about a year or so, and then, like I said, moved to Queens, and I've been here ever since.
Yeah, I love Brooklyn. It's a great borough. But this has been great. I mean, for anyone out there who's really sitting on their own dream, whatever it might be, maybe it's not writing, maybe it's being a photographer, maybe it's being an actor, starting those small steps and just take it on, baby. Do your part-time, as a part-time gig to get going, because you did it and so can everyone else out there who has that dream. Just live it. Now, the name of your stories for the Doorman, sharing your take on it was brickunderground.com, correct?
Yeah, so it's a real estate website, but if you were to, I guess, search a Doorman Speaks, people will be able to see into the archives all the old articles that I used to write for them. And again, it was funny. They had a little sarcastic undertone, but it's basically what we see and what we see on a daily basis,
Yes. And they can get Hispanicus at Amazon.com. Is there a website as well?
I guess you can, if they wanted it, they can go to my actual the website where my publisher is, and it's printhousebooks.com, and they can look for it there also.
That's fabulous. Well, I have to thank you again, Eddie. I know you're going to inspire people to get out there and create their own dreams, and I wish you all the best and just kicking butt going forward and just creating more and more awesome books. Thank you so much for coming to Savvy Broadcasting today.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. Thank you.
You betcha. If you like this episode, please share. To hear more Savvy episodes and Savvy Biz tips, go to lifeunscriptedradio.com. To become a guest or participate in paid sponsorship, email us at Christina@lifeunscriptedradio.com.